Good afternoon and welcome to the City Planning Commission special meeting. Mr. Singer, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. This is a City Planning Commission special meeting held in New York City, City Planning Commission Hearing Room, Lower Concourse, 120 Broadway. Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. I will now call the roll. Chair Lago.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Burney.
Here.
Commissioner Capelli.
Here.
Commissioner Cirillo.
Here.
Commissioner De La Uz. Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Commissioner Edie.
Here.
Commissioner Knight.
Here.
Commissioner Levin.
Here.
Commissioner Marine.
Here. Commissioner
Commissioner Ortiz.
Here.
Commissioner Rampashad.
Here.
A quorum is present. Let's turn to page 1 in the calendar. Calendar item 1 through 13, citywide. Calendar number 1, C190333 PSY. Calendar number 2, N190334 ZRY. Calendar number 3, C190335 ZSX as modified. Calendar number 4, C190336 ZMX. Calendar number 5, N190337 ZRX. Calendar number 6, C190338 HAX. Calendar number 7, C190339 ZSK as modified. Calendar number 8, C190116 MMK as modified. Calendar number 9, C190340 ZSM as modified. Calendar number 10, C190341 PQM. Calendar number 11, C190252 MMM. Calendar number 12, C190342 ZSQ as modified. Calendar number 13, C190117 MMQ. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments, site selection, UDAP designation, disposition of city-owned property, special permits, acquisitions, and city map amendments concerning the Borough-Based jails system for favorable reports on calendar numbers 1 through 13. Chair Lago.
I'd like to clarify that the modifications are the modifications that are being made by the Commission and that are reflected in the Commission's report. I'd also like to make some remarks before casting my yes vote. This is among the most consequential applications to come before the City Planning Commission in years, and it's an application that has been years in the making. The application is consequential because it's the first time that the Commission has had to consider how to meld the design-build process with ULURP's time clock. But the application is even more consequential because it is a crucial step in closing Rikers Island, which is important for reasons extending well beyond land use. I want to thank the Commission for your probing questions, for your focus on every detail, and for your concern about the incarcerated, about the workers in and visitors to the jails, and about the neighboring communities. While many of us are not criminal justice reform experts, your input is framing the post-Rikers world in a tangible way by literally shaping the borough-based jail buildings. I want to highlight the importance that I place on the Commission's ongoing role following ULURP. Your input, as well as that of the Department of City Planning, is welcome and will help to ensure that these buildings integrate seamlessly into the surrounding communities and become the civic assets that they are meant to be. I want to recognize the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, the Department of Correction, and the Department of Design and Construction for their work in creating the Borough-Based Jails program. I especially appreciate their responsiveness to the Commission, the Department, and the public. I place a lot of weight on their commitment to continued collaboration with all stakeholders during the design and construction phases. Finally, I want to thank the public, including the more than 100 people who testified at the Commission's public hearing in July, and the hundreds more who shared their comments via email and even regular mail. I know that I speak for the Commission in thanking the many who shared your personal experiences on Rikers Island. You brought to life the urgent need for criminal justice reform, and specifically the need to close Rikers Island. I'm proud that the Commission can play its part by voting to approve the 4 borough-based jails, an essential component of closing Rikers Island. Today's vote is so much more than a vote on site selections and special permits. It's a vote to end a bleak era in New York City's criminal justice history and a step towards critical criminal justice reform. 36 years after I first learned of then CPC Chairman Herbster's vision of closing Rikers Island, I'm glad to do my part to make that vision a reality by voting yes.
Vice Chairman Knuckles.
Thank you. I want to salute the City of New York and the Bloomberg administration. The de Blasio administration. This has been a long conversation, obviously. The de Blasio administration for the monumental task, undertaking the monumental task for closing Rikers. A 20th century solution no longer feasible in the 21st century. While the closure is something that can obviously galvanize great support, the siting of new facilities anywhere is not likely to be welcomed with the same level of support. I think given the limited options that the city has before it, I think each of the locations before us today are reasonable choices. Accordingly, I vote aye.
Commissioner Burney.
I'm also, I think, enthusiastic supporter of the work of the Lippman Commission and the work of MOC-J and Department of Corrections and Design Build. And I'm sympathetic the aspirations of the abolitionists, but I believe we've heard a lot of expert testimony to the effect that now is not the time, that maybe at some time in the future we will accomplish that goal, but in the meantime, we do need humane facilities to process the criminal justice reforms that we have in hand. Having said that, I think there are a couple of aspects of this application that have sort of tempered that enthusiasm. One has been the selection of the Diego Beekman site, and the second has been the decision to use design build, and I think we've struggled with that over the past several weeks. The Diego Beekman site does not meet the first criteria of the Lippman report of being close to the jails. And it also is on a site that was promised for other uses to that community. But on the plus side, the toe pound has been an eyesore. As we saw when we went to visit the site, the toe pound is really an eyesore in that community. And to finally see that gone will be a huge improvement. And this may be the one opportunity now for the long-promised housing and supermarket that's been 20 or more years in the making to actually happen because of the building of the jail. And of course, everybody will be very happy to see the stigma of the barge at Hunts Point finally closed. So I think on balance, the site selection is something I would support. The other issue is the design build program, and it seems unfortunate that having gotten approval to do design build, the city selects 4 of the most sensitive neighborhood projects for this experiment, and a design build process on which they have really no expertise or experience. However, I think the Commission has made various amendments to the application, including the very sensible setback constraints that the city planning staff have applied that I think will help that process, and also the commitment of the Department of Design and Construction to come back to the Commission with the designs as they progress through the process. So I think with those amendments, I'm certainly happy to support what's going on, and I vote yes.
Commissioner Capelli.
Jeopardize. David Bernie, you should recuse yourself. You worked on this plan and you know it.
I professionally am a criminal defense attorney representing indigent people who are black and brown. I deal with the families of people who have been incarcerated in Rikers Island, as well as the children, the people themselves. Rikers Island is an abomination. It's a stain on the city.
Commissioner Capelli?
This is what democracy looks like.
Anyway, as I was saying, I have two major problems with the proposal on the table. As echoed by Commissioner Burney, design build is a very curious choice for four of the most sensitive projects that are going to be taking place in this city. And I will say that I'm at least pleased that a lot of accommodations and concessions on the part of the city to allow city planning and others to be part of that process going forth, but it's still, it would be a lot more satisfying if we were looking at an actual design as opposed to having to guess as to what's occurring. Second of all, as I've said from the beginning, the site in the Bronx troubles me. The fact that it's so far removed from downtown the Bronx, it takes away from the part of the planning of this, which is to have people near the court that they're going to be going in. Having said that, the overwhelming issue for me is closing Rikers Island, closing a chapter on one of the city's sorry institutions, creating a more modern and humane place, together with bail reform, which is going to shrink the population of the people who are incarcerated. I would encourage further reforms to lower the populations in these facilities. But that's not what this is about today. What this is about today is closing Rikers Island, and accordingly, I vote yes.
Commissioner Cerullo?
No.
Commissioner.
I'd like to acknowledge the diligent work on this complicated application by the staff. The land use matter in front of us has consequences that will impact this city for generations. Not for lack of effort by staff, this application is imperfect. But again, with the broad scope of this action, perfection would be an impossibility. That being said, I recommend that the council modify this application in line with all borough presidents' recommendations, and certainly the Brooklyn Borough President's recommendations regarding height, ground floor use, and the number of beds. With that, I vote yes.
Commissioner Edie.
This has been far one of the most complicated and nuanced applications I've seen, where the issues are broad and the impact very direct and meaningful. I'd first like to thank the public for its participation through the public hearing and its written testimony. Your input helped to put these issues before us in a clearer perspective, both to those in support and those opposed. At the beginning, I questioned why not just fix Rikers, but it soon became clear that moving to a borough-based plan provided the best opportunity to improve conditions for the residents. I'd also like to thank Chair Largo and the staff at City Planning for the thoughtful analysis and follow-up provided, as well as the staff at the various other city agencies. I believe that the process which has been established regarding ongoing input from City Planning and the community will create outcomes which will better serve the residents, the local communities, and the city. I am happy to vote yes on these items.
Commissioner Knight.
I associate my comments with those of the chair and the vice chair and support these land use actions as they are crucial in moving the process forward in closing Rikers Island. As a member of this commission, I look forward to receiving updates on the progress of this initiative and vote yes.
Commissioner Levin.
This is just the first step in a public commitment to close Rikers Island. The plans are not yet fixed, and the selection of the Bronx site is seriously flawed. The proposed buildings are intimidating in their scale, and there are many unanswered questions about how they will be designed, how they will fit into their neighborhoods, and how they will be paid for. Though the special permit ULURP applications have come far too soon, in my view, the city is now committed to robust community participation in the design and construction to come. This is just the beginning, but I agree it's time to begin. I vote yes.
Commissioner Loren.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for all who have worked on this application. The speakers both in favor and opposed at our hearing, the staff who provided salient information necessary to understand fully the intricate details of both the possible physical form of the buildings and the accompanying text, and to my colleagues, all of whom have spent numerous hours analyzing and considering the outcomes that may be possible. I would like to first emphasize that I believe that the correctional facility we know as Rikers or Rikers Island needs to be decommissioned, and a much more human, decent, and respectful correctional facility and or system needs to be implemented. This has to be done strategically and with the interest of the communities where these facilities are being planned to be sited and developed. We started this process with a presentation and overview of various municipalities that had undertaken jail reform efforts. Examples and photos were provided to demonstrate how the correctional facilities could coexist next to the very courthouses, serving the inmates, and how beautifully they could fit in with the built environment to which such structures would lend their presence. The main principle presented in each example was the fact that the jail should be, in fact, built in very close proximity to the municipal and or court center within the municipality. In fact, it was determined that the ideal scenario was one in which a jail would be immediately adjacent to or joined by a physical connection to the court building, where a direct exchange between inmate, courts, and family could be had expeditiously and with human dignity. We were then provided a report, the Lippman report as we have now come to know it, that identified that among principles cited previously, the report also studies and determines that jails should not be developed or built immediately to residential communities. However, I follow that recommendation with some trepidation due to the fact that we're not beginning to develop and build our city, nor do we have the necessary clear open space or tracts of land to develop and build jails that are not next to residential areas. This is why community involvement, exchange of ideas, and buy-in for the plan, if you will, are necessary for the eventual success of any application presented to this body for consideration and possible approval. We have learned from the various communities that their voices against the development of or study of further of the application and the siting of the facilities merit more time and scrutiny. At this point, we are being asked to vote on an application and have but few details, programming thoughts that are clearly not finalized by the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, and contradictions that exist in the thinking and planning of the physical structures. For example, the women's jail will be housed in Queens, which does not solve the issue of time and travel and proximity cited in various documents as necessary and required to see loved ones. The probation hall will be cited in the Bronx, where all inmates will have to be brought to, again, not resolving the proximity of correctional services and travel of inmates between boroughs and facilities. The siting of the Bronx facility, which if built, will be closer to the correctional facility that we're trying to decommission, Rikers Island, rather than the 2.7-mile distance that it will mandate that the Bronx inmates be provided transportation to the court system complex at 161st Street. Then, of course, there is reform that needs to be studied and implemented at the Department of Corrections. I remain concerned due to the fact that at this point, our hearings, we have heard of the abuses the inmates have had to endure and the inhumane treatment of both the inmates and their families who come to demonstrate that love conquers all and the road to reformation, healing, and change could only be determined and administered by a loved one who loves that family member or friend unconditionally. Let's face it, if you look to your left and again to your right, you are looking at the faces of those of us who might have or have had family institutionalized, and one thing we fear most is the inhumane treatment, abuse, and neglect. The one thing we wish for is that our loved one learns from their mistake and becomes a more productive and contributing member of society. Prison reform is a crucial element and necessary for these buildings to function as planned, and if not considered as part of this reformative plan process, we will have failed. I do believe that this application falls short in several areas, including the fact that it cannot factor in further jail reform changes being contemplated and yet being decided upon, that may lend insight to how the new jails could be designed and programmed, which are being planned to begin vetted in the first quarter of 2020. We cannot begin to fully comprehend the shape and built form that the proposed correctional facilities will take without first understanding and weighing all of these and many more factors that will be the result of further prison reform. I vote in the negative. My vote is no.
Commissioner Ortiz.
I would like to associate myself with the comments of the chair, and my vote is yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Good afternoon. Before I cast my no vote, I'd just like to read a statement. First, I'd like to thank Frank Wuchula and Taylor Wilson from the entire city planning staff for providing the requested plans and getting back to us in regards to the many questions we've had during this process. We have been presented with an unprecedented UOP application, one which would grant a special permit to modify the current zoning district, floor area, bulk, parking, loading, establish an MIH area, and demapping the streets to accommodate the development of 4 borough-based jails, Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. While I understand the need to create a humane way to treat those that are detained, I have concerns about this project. Some of those concerns stem from the feedback we received from the community boards, the neighborhood advisory committees, the borough presidents, and through testimony during July 10th public hearing that city planning had, in which multiple city agencies and individuals were both for and against, spoke out against this project. During that meeting, numerous individuals expressed concerns for public health and safety, funding of this project, and transparency from city agencies. After reading through multiple documents such as the Lipton Report, testimony from various organizations, and information provided on city websites such as Smaller, Safer, Fairer, and Roadmap to Close the Rikers, there is no doubt that a change is needed on Rikers and how the city handles those that are detained or incarcerated. The project itself has been constantly evolving both before and after it was certified as city planning. There have been changes to the number of beds, reduction in floor area height based on conceptual plans we received, changes to the proposed programming, which is still not clear at this time and continue to be a concern. For example, the women's facility location, as well as the medical facility. Also, the projected budget, which has gone from $11 billion to $8 billion, and it will continue to change. With the recently passed criminal justice reforms, the jail population will continue to fluctuate. With this constant change and uncertainty of the actual number of those detained, which is projected to be at or about 4,000 by 2026, I feel that the current proposed size of these borough-based jails will consist of 15 to 20-foot floor-to-floor heights, and I understand the need for flexibility in design, but I believe these are too large in scale and should be modified. It also begs the question of whether the proposed budget and size of these jails are appropriate. If the culture in Rikers hasn't changed, then we would essentially be replacing one distressed facility with 4. In my opinion, at this time, it is premature to approve this ULURP, and I therefore vote no on this matter.
Favorable reports have been adopted on counter numbers 1 through 13.
And Ryan, any additional matters before the commission?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, the hearing is closed. Thank you.